Hey, good morning, everyone, and thank you for taking your time and spending it with us today to learn more about financial process automation. We have a great session planned today and sincerely hope you get value that you can use in your upcoming projects or whatever those may be. So please be aware this session is being recorded and will be made available for replay later. Um, Next slide. Great. So here's how today's session is going to go down. So Bob from KnowledgeLake is going to bring us through the landscape and the business case, why you want to be automating your financial processes. Then I'm going to walk through an accounts payable example and the three big reasons why organizations are doing it now. Then it's back to Bob and Greg to show a live demo. And by the way, if you have any questions, please submit them through the chat panel. We'll address them at the end, or if we don't get to them, we'll follow up with an email. So welcome, everyone. Let's get started. Bob, over to you.
All right. Hope everyone can hear me clearly. Thanks, Sean. I really appreciate that introduction. And again, welcome to everyone to today's session. My name is Bob Monio, and I'm a managing director at KnowledgeLake. I'm happy to talk to you today with Sean about industrial automation, intelligent automation, as we like to call it, as it applies to document processing, and specifically to the area of financial process automation. This is a rich topic, and we want to make sure that you understand as much as you can about it today. So we've got an action-packed agenda, as you can see, that we're going to take and walk you through. I'm going to kick things off by talking about financial process automation. And as you're aware, with today's emerging economic climate, we've got a mixture of good and bad out there. Good news on growth in certain areas and in unemployment, bad on supply chain. We're seeing a lot of situations with the supply chain out there, and that supply chain problem affecting how people are able to get products from companies and how companies are able to get upstream products from their suppliers is affecting their businesses. And I'm sure your businesses are affected accordingly as well. And it really drives itself down to what that does to your cash position and how that is going to address the health of your firm. Now, there are some companies out there who are accelerating through that curve and are having great success with this, but those are also companies too, though, as we'll point out, that they've established real strong, mobile, agile, cloud integrated infrastructures that have survived the transition. And we know with work from home taking off and being something that's not going to go away, this is all contributing to the fact that you need to have these types of infrastructures in place. And you might be saying, well, why financial process automation? Why is that a concern? Well, financial process automation, as it applies to your business, is where all of the management of cash and management of the health of the business takes place. And if you look at the typical finance department today, you'll see that it really encompasses four areas: tax and treasury, accounting, planning and budget, and also audit. Of course, we're going to be focusing on the areas where the supply chain plays a big role and how cash is part of that. What that really means is that you have an end-to-end set of activities that occur inside of your company that affect your supply chain and affect what takes place from an FP&A perspective. So while we drill down into this space, I do want to acknowledge the fact that there are a lot of other areas. Some of the things I've just talked about above as far as how the finance department is organized, but even specifically as we drill down into the areas of how the company is operating in the finance organization, you'll see that there's a lot of areas here that are opportune for optimization. Optimization, which in turn can have a dramatic impact on the performance of your business. And from a KnowledgeLake perspective, we spend a lot of time in these areas, and we do that necessarily to help those firms really get their arms around what's going on. And then we work with our partners like VersaFile to make sure that there are solutions and process-based solutions that help them do that. So today, as we talk about what some folks will call on the market purchase to pay or procure to pay, sometimes referred to as spend management, we're going to be talking about how accounts payable, that red circled area that you see, which aligns itself well to procurement, plays a pivotal role in what you're doing. Because accounts payable, as we know, is an area in the business that has a tremendous amount of documents that flow through and a tremendous amount of activity that impacts what is going on inside the organization. And getting control over that is very, very important. specifically keeping in mind that this information comes in through so many different conduits of mobile, conduits of just traditional paper. Paper hasn't gone away. We thought it would, but it hasn't gone away and will not go away for the near future, or digitally provided documents. But we also kind of want to recognize too, though, that there needs to be a strong infrastructure. You remember when I spoke about the cloud-based hybrid infrastructures that companies have implemented. For you and your organization using SAP, you have a world-class ERP that you're working with for purposes of managing transactions across your business. But there's also key components that are also available from the Microsoft family that specifically address your collaborative functions, also storage of documents from a repository perspective, such as SharePoint, and now with the advent of Teams, even more functionality coming forward there. So these are key areas to keep looking at and making sure that you're addressing it. But ultimately, as I said, we're going to focus on accounts payable. So why accounts payable? Accounts payable today is a critical area because, as we know, if you're a CFO or a CIO, as you look at this research we have up here, you'll probably confirm what we're seeing, and that is accounts payable is fraught with a tremendous amount of inefficiency. Inefficiency in the data entry, lost or missing invoices. I can't tell you how many companies I've talked to where they spend a lot of time going back to filing cabinets and in different rooms trying to find invoices and get those invoices pulled out because maybe there's an issue. A supplier has called in and said, why haven't I been paid yet? And they're trying to track all that down. What this research tells us, and it continues to get reflected every year with, again, this is an area that is not going away. We're seeing all of these types of various concerns popping up. And quite honestly, getting control over this from accounts payable perspective is one of the most efficient ways to improve your supply chain. This is interesting too, though, that when we look at some additional research, we know that companies who have automated their accounts payable practice are companies that are surviving and thriving now in the post-pandemic, if you want to call it that, post-pandemic world. And they're accelerating through the curve because they've taken the steps to automate this space. And this is something important to recognize, and we want you to be one of those companies and how that works for you. Now, documents play a critical role, and I think it's important for you to understand how documents are positioned inside your organization and how they apply to AP. You have, of course, all of your SAP-based documents. We consider those to be, as part of your primary investment, about 20% of the information that your company consumes and works with as part of your accounts payable processing. And that is all structured, okay, but it's 20%. There is still a remaining 80% of other documents that comprise invoices, proof of delivery, remittances, sales orders, contracts for matching, purchase orders, shipping and inventory receipts. This is 80% of the content that is addressed as part of accounts payable. And having this under control in the finance department means then that you're able to automate and improve your processing time. You're able to cut your processing costs. You're able to improve your security risks and other things. And most importantly, as we know, as the supply chain is impacted by shipping, you're able to control shipping costs and control what's taking place from a shipping standpoint. So again, getting control over this set of content is very, very crucial. And that's why together with VersaFile and with KnowledgeLake, we deliver a complete solution for helping you to address this as part of what is going on in your AP automation goals. And keeping in mind too, I mean, you might be saying, well, gosh, who out there has actually done this and who is having success? You've already told me that firms who have automated are making their way through appropriately. Interestingly enough, 60% of the companies out there today have not automated their AP environments. So they're suffering. They're suffering because they can't control their cash. They're suffering because they can't control their documents. And with the right type of automation, they can turn that around and then they can start moving forward again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this back to Sean because we're going to talk a little bit about this problem and why it's worth solving. Sean, you want to take over here?
Great, thank you, Bob. So let's bring this to real life using our accounts payable example. So part of modernizing your processes is to centralize the ingestion of invoices and its data when we're talking accounts payable. So we call this capture. KnowledgeLake systems allow for this ingestion from multiple channels. What does that mean, or what do we mean by that? Well, it means invoices could come in by email, vendor portal, or even paper still, if that's the case. But ultimately, regardless of the source, all invoices come to a central location for automated processing and exception handling. The outcome is a digital image of the invoice with the invoice data that's been extracted all in a Microsoft 365 repository and securely in there. Once it shows up in Microsoft 365, docuflow's integration platform for SAP then wakes up and creates and parks the invoice within SAP. This automatically triggers other pre-built SAP processes or docuflow SAP processes to execute any kind of matching that needs to occur. And if all is 100% good, then it flows straight through to payment readiness. If there are exceptions, docuflow automatically builds a queue for the AP staff to track, review, fix, and or approve to keep it moving forward. Any non-PO invoices that you may want to route for approval can be done either inside of SAP or outside of SAP using Microsoft Power Automate if you're looking at outside. All approvals then flow back into SAP using docuflow that then keeps the process moving. So everything stays in synchronization, whether it's inside or outside of SAP. So in this scenario, which can be readily replicated with many financial processes that Bob's talked about already, but what in the end, what it's really helping you do is eliminate manual data entry, eliminate all those manual downloads and attachment linking that you're doing today, eliminate spreadsheet tracking, eliminate email-based reviews and approvals, and then minimize manual updates within the SAP invoice record itself. All of this drives cost savings, with one customer reporting invoice processing costs reduced by 62%. And that's the big number you see on the screen there. And we'll talk about that case study in a moment. Right, so Bob mentioned earlier that 60% of organizations have yet to fully digitize and automate their financial processes. So, woof, that's a big number. That's a big amount that hasn't got to that yet. So why start now? Well, there's three big reasons we're seeing from our customers that include system modernization, we're going to talk about in a second, push to S/4HANA, and then high-level digital transformation initiatives that may be underway from the executive level. So let's talk briefly about each. So let's talk about modernization and why. Modernization, it's really about reducing legacy systems and moving to cloud and automating. So driven by larger digital transformation strategies, usually, the outcome is hard cost savings in this particular area. And for example, one customer we were just speaking with yesterday based their use case on saving $750,000 to $1 million. Cost savings that come from reduced legacy licensing, on-prem environments, IT sustainment costs, all of the extra patching and work that needs to go with those custom solutions. So that's where you can get hard cost savings. So on to S/4HANA. So the push to S/4HANA has been strong of late. And so reducing these or having a better ROI is a key component of this. The business case justifying this is a big hurdle, though, for most organizations. We don't want to just upgrade for upgrade's sakes. We want to get some value out of this, is what we're hearing. So contributions to this business case can come in the form of the above modernization costs that we just talked about, that's $750,000 to $1 million, plus efficiencies gained through automation. And some of this automation that we've been talking about around accounts payable as an example, but can apply to all of your financial process automations. So it's going to jump to the next slide. And so we'll talk really about digital transformation strategies. And this is finally get to this. But the key components in place, this is where the key components come into place that allow us for more streamlining and automation. So using KnowledgeLake and docuflow, no-code, low-code tools, you can then build further ROI quickly out with large projects and with lower risk. So from a recent report, though, that we saw from McKinsey & Company, They research the key success factors for organizations who are successfully navigating digital transformations. One of those key success factors is to implement digital tools to make information more accessible and available from one end of a process to the other. And so when we think about accounts payable, how do we keep our content digital and accessible from one end of the process to the other? So keeping the process in and access to the information to all the parties in the process just minimizes manual tasks such as data entry, printing, manually signing documents, spreadsheets, excessive email type workflows. And this is the type of information or the type of tools that we see from KnowledgeLake and from docuflow that come together to help us fill those gaps. So we've already walked you through an accounts payable scenario. Let's take one more look at how we're doing this behind the scenes. Our first scenario starts outside SAP and is called inbound processing. Here, we're capturing images and data via KnowledgeLake into Microsoft 365. Once they land, docuflow uses the data to go do something in SAP. In our scenario today, that is to create an invoice and fill in the data into the SAP record. Because our connectors are bidirectional, we can then synchronize any other data existing or new data in SAP back to the document securely in Microsoft 365. So this synchronization will continue throughout the life cycle of the SAP record. Finally, within the SAP record, we will place a link to the image in Microsoft 365 so the SAP users have access to this information at their fingertips. Our second scenario starts inside SAP and is called outbound processing. Here we're attaching a document directly to an SAP transaction or master record. Once again, docuflow recognizes this action and instead archives the document securely to Microsoft 365 and leaves a link at the SAP record level. So content again is readily available. We will of course keep any metadata in sync as well. So coming up shortly, Greg's going to demonstrate and show you all of this stuff live in a demo. So it's great. So let's go into our next slide here. And so finally, just talk about a real quick success story, then we'll hand it back to Bob. This customer, using all their docuflow technologies that we talked about today, was able to save a bunch of costs by reducing manual data entry into SAP. They saved a bunch of costs by eliminating duplicate invoices and invoice errors. They also saved a bunch of time through faster invoice processing using automation, like the tools from docuflow and like from KnowledgeLake. So going beyond accounts payable, docuflow is also used to digitize their audit management processes. So again, another financial process. Multiple internal and external audit requests were happening per month, consuming a lot of resources, taking sometimes up to 3 weeks in some scenarios to manually retrieve the thousands of documents per audit that were required. So docuflow's capabilities help them save cost and time by automating their SAP audit reports, allowing embedded digital links to securely retrieve and share thousands of documents supporting the audit and the auditors. And we package all of this up for them and make it available through a secure shared site. Other automation and through other automation and docuflow's dynamic scalable architecture help this client digitally transform their finance department. So next, I'm going to hand it back to Bob. He's going to talk a bit more about KnowledgeLake and their role in financial process automation, then over to Greg for the SAP demo. Bob?
Yeah, thank you. That was outstanding. And I love the customer success story because it really starts to highlight all of the things that can be done when you have the right tools to be able to go in and automate business processes and also be able to handle and put under control all the documents that are necessary to do this work. So excellent, excellent success story. And I know there are many more that we collectively have that can be talked about. But what we'd like to do is we'd like to actually go through and do a short demonstration here of the technology and how the technology works together to deliver some of those things you just heard from Sean in that use case. I'm going to take you through just sort of again back to the process so that you again understand from a left to right perspective what we're doing. Now, while we focus on the specifics of the multi-channel capture, which is really, really important to understand because in the multi-channel world, invoices and documents come in from all different types of formats and routes. And we have to be able to address all of those. Also, what we do is we focus on the automation of that process so that whereas in traditional worlds, you would typically have to create separate processes for all these different types of captures, our tools are built so that we can automatically classify and be able to pull in the documents and then route them appropriately to the appropriate process. And this is where the integration with docuflow really shines. Another thing that we do focus on is we focus on the ability to take, and as part of pulling that information in, and I'm now going to actually move to a screen so you can see how that works, is we actually will take here and we will actually take master data, metadata from the back-end system, and that's coming through docuflow. And we'll be able to go through and actually validate at several levels that this invoice document, even before it's released to docuflow, is properly formatted, the POs are correct, it's not a duplicate invoice, it has all the information necessary about the customer, everything that is needed in order to have a straight through process of this document is addressed with the KnowledgeLake solution. So from that perspective, again, very, very powerful in how it helps move that invoice through. Some of the information we've seen on the market and from analysts has told us that by doing this, we can save customers anywhere between $5 and $15 on their actual keying costs by having this type of functionality available, and then further integrated and being driven down to the point of the process-based solution that you just heard the team talk about. So again, very important to understand how our solution is helping to address this and what it means. And one other thing I'll point out, because we have some customers doing this, we've got customers all over the world who are taking and putting their invoices into the systems. Our system is an actual software as a service. It runs in the cloud, of course, Microsoft Cloud, and therefore it can receive all of these invoices and other types of documents that we've talked about, no matter where you are in the world. And if you want to scan, if you want to send them in electronically via email, if you want to go out and have them pulled from a portal, we can do all of that, all with one tool. And that's probably one of the most important things that I can say here and what it will mean as far as your cost savings in addressing this first mile of invoice extraction. But also, there's some very, very important things that docuflow is doing that Sean discussed. And I'm going to ask Greg to take over here. Greg, I'm going to pass control to you so that you can go ahead and show them the magic of docuflow.
All right, thanks, Bob. We'll just wait for the screen share to come over and then we'll get on with this side of the demo.
You should have control now.
All right. All right, thanks everybody. You should be seeing our accounts payable dashboard within SAP. In the spirit of everything that Bob and Sean mentioned in terms of financial process automation, left keying, automatic routing, full exception management with built-in intelligence, approvals outside of SAP. That's what you're seeing on your screen here. I'm going to show you it in a little bit more detail. Let's look at one of the first examples. Well, we've got a high dollar invoice, almost $1 million, and it came in and it is available for early pay discount. Well, it's at the top of the queue. It's set as a priority number 1. It's going to be sitting there waiting to be processed, fully automated, so that you can go ahead and achieve your early pay discounts. docuflow with the KnowledgeLake system bolted on will capture all the data necessary in order for you to have this at your fingertips in the appropriate prioritization and at the appropriate stage. Moving down our queue, a couple of other examples. Another one here, we had an invoice come in from this vendor where actually that vendor is blocked for payment. So docuflow automatically sets that into an exception and flags it as a payment block being applied. Moving down again in the spirit of full automation, let's take a look at this line here where we see it is a PO-based invoice and it's came in and with no human touch, because of that KnowledgeLake capture and power and intelligence, it came through docuflow into docuflow inside of SAP and it's automatically posted that PO-based invoice and it's off for the payment run. So here's an example where this document is already in the system, no human touch is necessary, and it's off to be paid. You don't get much more efficient than that. We have another exception here for this bottom invoice. It came in, again, it all goes back to that information being captured on the front end by KnowledgeLake. It's automatically set out for exception. this one's applicable to tax review. It's routed accordingly, and those agents will triage that invoice. Let's go ahead and execute one here. And actually, let's look at this one that came in. docuflow automatically parked it, and it went for approval. Well, as Sean mentioned, we have the ability to approve inside and outside of SAP. So let's go ahead and take a look at this example on our phone. So taking a look at Microsoft Power Automate, we see it's automatically routed to your managers outside of SAP through Power Automate. Not only Power Automate, but what's really cool is it also integrates directly with Teams. So by either platform, Teams or Power Automate, you can now approve your invoices outside of SAP. Let's go ahead and do so on this one. Click on it, we see some cursory information about the invoice in the body of the Microsoft Power Automate task. At any point, we can go ahead and display that invoice directly in SharePoint. And going back to our invoice, let's go ahead and approve it. Add comments if necessary, confirm, and we're done. So that will now take the trip back into SAP, update the docuflow accounts payable workflow automatically, and move on to the next step, whether it be applicable additional levels of approval or off to the payment run. Everything we do inside of SAP links that content to SharePoint as well. So at any point, we can go look at these documents directly inside of SAP. And if we look at the docuflow attachment list within SAP, we see there is the invoice located in SharePoint. At any point, simply double click to view it. Again, this is not in your SAP database. This is in SharePoint, as the URL suggests, keeping all your content safe and secure on that side. With that, the only thing I want to mention before I pass it back to Bob is, I'll just get back to my home screen. You know, what good is all this dashboard and invoices and whatnot if you can't search and find and load balance? Well, the entry point to our accounts payable dashboard is an all-in-one stop for managers, clerks of all sorts, approvers, and exception managers as well. With full built-in statistics, this is your one-stop shop for accounts payable. And not to worry, I'm showing this on S4, on Fiori. Whether you're using Fiori or not, on ECC or S4, we are compatible, and it's like for like. Here's the back end of our system, the same view, just via your SAP GUI. With that, Bob, I'll pass it back to you.
All right, that's outstanding, and thank you, Greg. As you can see, the support and capabilities that docuflow has for the variety of SAP implementations is unmatched. Certainly in the industry and across customers and such, this is something that can have a dramatic impact on your success as you continue to make your journey to the cloud or stay within the context of the systems and things that you might have today. What I'm going to do is, he's transferring control back over to me, is I'm going to go ahead and talk about then really what is it that is a crucial situation for you to be thinking about as far as the true values of what you've just seen. Certainly from a financial process automation perspective, you've seen that accounts payable can be done very, very quickly. And it is a key area for you to invest in, but certainly take control of. Because by taking control of it, you're able then to reduce the cycle time, sometimes by up to 80% of how an invoice moves through your organization. Your cost per invoice, which is certainly the key criteria that a controller or the CFO really pays attention, can be reduced. We've dealt with customers together here that have seen as much as a 50% savings reduction in their cost per invoice, which is crucial because that's real money impacting your bottom line. And if you can take that money and turn it into investment capital or into other, and reposition into other areas, that's very, very crucial. Also, your ability to get early payment discounts. You heard Greg mention that. This is something that many organizations right now struggle with, especially with the context of what has transpired in the economy and the pandemic. This gives you the ability to bring them back. And those early payment discounts are something you can partner on with your procurement team. That's another one of the areas within FPA. And ultimately, again, drive more savings for your business. So with this solution, we really encompass it in the area of spend management. managing that cash, managing that spend, because doing this is the ultimate key area from the standpoint of what your organization is really wanting to take on as part of their supply chain. And remember, you can tackle unstructured documents with ease. You can enable the straight-through processing that I spoke of earlier, and your employees are much happier because they've got the right digital tools in their hands to help them move forward and be effective. And we know that there's a lot of people moving around these days because organizations are not automated. They are not working with the right types of tools. These types of tools keep them happy, keep them in your organization, and keep them contributing to what you're doing. So together, KnowledgeLake and docuflow can help you bring all that content under control and accelerate the benefits of a truly intelligently automated environment with the savings it brings. And 3 things to keep in mind. You've got the best intelligent capture with machine learning in the market for what it can do for you and all of your documents. And I mean all of your documents. Once you have it, you can go into all the other areas of your business within SAP, working with the VersaFile team to take and automate those areas. The process automation and task management that you receive from VersaFile and docuflow is unmatched. And I know that personally, having worked in this market for well over 20 years, and especially with SAP. And these cloud native solutions work alongside of SAP and supports your S/4HANA and cloud journey. That's also something that's not readily available out on the market today. So take advantage of these things, put it to work. But we do want you to be able to take and get started and take advantage of a real interesting offer that Sean and team, together with KnowledgeLake, want to make available to you. Sean, would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks, Bob. So we do have an opportunity. It's a no charge half day automation first workshop. And so what we do is we rapidly come in and assess with KnowledgeLake what your document management needs are, as well as we look at the process automation opportunities within your financial department, the finance department. And so what comes out of this session is that A, it's tailored to your needs, but B, the outcomes can be used to help you build your business case. And the roadmap that we put together, this high-level roadmap, is great for your executive level communications to position this and to help better communicate your the automation projects that you want to undertake. So what you see on here is a little 3D barcode or QR code. Feel free to scan that with your phone, and that will send an email to us letting us know that you would like to partake in a automation first workshop. We can plan that out for you and we can get to work on that. Alternatively, you can email us at email me at Sean F, SEANF @versafile.com. So Bob, why don't we now jump over to some questions?
Absolutely. And Sean's email address will be on the final slide after this, so you'll see it listed there as well as mine as well. And we're excited to take part in this process with Sean and the team to help you unlock your automation goals with SAP. But we want to turn to our moderators who have been sitting in the background and monitoring and looking for questions that have been coming in. Team, any questions that have come in from the folks on the line?
Well, Bob, while we're waiting for some questions from the folks on the line here, I noticed that there were some that came through. One of them was, maybe we covered this, but maybe Greg, you can address this one. What versions of SAP are supported?
Yeah, today we're focusing on accounts payable. So the answer in that context is both ECC and S4, whether you're using SAP UI or SAP Fiori. So all those versions. Above and beyond accounts payable, we do branch out into SuccessFactors as well as Sales Cloud.
And Greg, what about modules within ECC and S4? We're talking finance today, but we do know we need to link into other modules. What about other modules?
Yeah, that's a great question. We'd love to talk to you more about that, because what you're seeing today, the same theory, the functionality of docuflow with KnowledgeLake is really SAP module agnostic. So all the linking, the workflow, the tracking and all that, we focus in on accounts payable you can apply any micro process to that and really gain more efficiency across your organization.
That's awesome. And so, Greg, there's one other question that's come up. Does docuflow support three-way matching? And I think we covered this, or we talked generally about matching, but maybe you could talk about matching a little bit.
Yeah, actually, I went right by that one, so I'm glad somebody asked. One of the real strengths of the docuflow accounts payable solution is that, albeit I showed, the approval outside of SAP, and obviously KnowledgeLake is outside of SAP in the cloud, capturing all that information, the core engine for the accounts payable solution resides inside of SAP. This is a roundabout way of answering the question in that, yeah, we support three-way matching because that resides inside of SAP. So we're leveraging all the investment that you've made with SAP over the years, all the standard SAP configuration. We do not need to reinvent the wheel, the checks, the balances, all the different rules and the reference data outside of SAP for this accounts payable solution. That's why it goes in fast, supports all the SAP functionalities such as three-way matching, and your time to go live is reduced drastically.
Sure.
Ron, I saw a question come in, and this was actually about reporting.
Excellent.
Somebody was interested in, can reporting be done on what's taking place at the extraction level, so they understand their invoice volume, the number of problem invoices that have come in, any types of issues associated with that prior to it going into SAP. And then he further asks, what about docuflow? What does docuflow do for reporting as far as the performance of your AP environment? Let me handle the first one, and maybe Greg, you can take the second one. We absolutely will provide the types of reporting that customers are looking for, so they can look at the health of those incoming conduits that they have for invoices coming into the business. They can look at where there are problematic issues with certain suppliers that perhaps maybe are not following the rules, okay? Because an optimized invoicing process means that you have a good partnership with your suppliers, and oftentimes you're getting your suppliers to provide their invoices in a consistent format all the time, even from an e-invoicing standpoint. And this is something that we reflect in our reporting, and we make that available to customers, and it's something that, as part of an implementation with VersaFile, that the customer is trained on and they know how to address that. Greg, what about the reporting that VersaFile does?
Yeah, too bad we didn't have more time on just a webinar to go over that. The reporting is a whole other side that we didn't show today. Not only real-time reporting for tracking and snapshot overviews of where is every invoice in the system, what stage is it at, how much is it aging, are we overdue? docuflow supports all of that through that one-stop shop track link that I showed you during the demo. But on top of that, we have a statistics module that as well will give you a plethora of information, such as, your early pay discounts achieved, which ones are missed, why, your average time to pay, a whole host of statistics that then you can, delve into further to really fine tune your accounts payable process, as well as find out where your bottlenecks are and where you're losing money.
Okay, that's outstanding. I actually just had one other question come in, and this was reflected in the types of documents. Somebody was asking about e-invoicing and also asking about the ability to work with portals and such to be able to get at invoices, and whether that was something that KnowledgeLake can do. And yes, the answer is absolutely yes. And we have a number of different tools that allow that to take place. So again, this is part of the investment we've made in this product over the years to ensure that we're encompassing every route to invoice to come into the company. And that's all I've got, Sean, that I've seen come through. So back to you.
Yeah, no, that's it for us as well, that I've seen on our end. So I think we've come to the conclusion and time to wrap things up here. So folks, if there are any questions, or you would like to talk about next steps or explore the possibility of doing the workshop, the Automation First workshop with Bob and I, love to hear from you. And our emails are both listed here. So yeah, we're happy to hear from you. And Bob, any other concluding remarks from your angle?
No, but I would say this, that organizations today who are investing in automating their FP&A environments are the real winners in what is the new emerging economy. Because again, cash is king. And if you can't manage your cash, you will go out of business. And it's increasingly harder and harder and harder today to manage that cash unless you have the right systems in place to do this. And as you've just seen, starting with accounts payable to move you down that pathway, will start to move you on that journey and get you closer to being able to manage your cash the way you need to. And this solution and this team are the right team for you to get that done. So I'm excited, Sean, to work with some of these customers and answer their questions as well.
That's terrific. Excellent. Well, thank you, everybody, and I greatly appreciate you joining us this morning, and look forward to speaking with you more. Thank you, Bob and Greg, for your participation.
Indeed. Thank you, Sean, and thank you, Greg, and thank you to all those who attended today. We look forward to speaking with you soon.
Thanks, everybody.